My friends, begin with the simplest experiment. Place your attention on the quiet inside your chest and let your own name settle there. Notice how your breath changes when you imagine 100 unseen eyes deciding what you must be. You have felt that pressure, and you have called it criticism, jealousy, rumor, or bad timing. But what if it is older than those names? What if the resistance around you is not merely social, not merely personal, but symbolic? An ancient pattern waking the moment your life begins to matter to itself. Consider how often you have entered a room and felt unwelcome before a word was spoken, or shared a sincere sentence and sensed a recoil that had nothing to do with its content. That feeling is not imaginary. It is a signal that something archetypal has stirred. When too many people hate you, you are rarely being measured. You are being used as a mirror. The image they cannot face inside themselves seeks a face to attach to, and your presence provides the surface. Here is the first question that opens the door. Who or what awakens in others when you simply, fully stand in your actual shape? Hatred behaves like weather. One person's unhealed wound evaporates, another person's envy warms, a third person's fear condenses, and suddenly a cloud forms that belongs to no single sky. Sensitive people can taste this cloud before it darkens. They feel tired without cause, guilty without trespass, cautious without clarity. In psychological terms, this is projection, disowned material seeking a host. In mythic terms, this is archetype, an old role searching for a new actor. The phenomenon is impersonal, yet it feels personal. When too many people dislike you, it is often because your presence has become symbolic. To a conforming tribe, a symbol is more frightening than a fact. Facts can be argued. Symbols rearrange the furniture of meaning. Something about you rearranges that furniture. You may carry too much truth, too much tenderness, too much intensity, or too much difference for the arrangement to stay comfortable. When the arrangement cannot metabolize what you bring, it tries to metabolize you. That is why the resistance feels larger than any misunderstanding. You are being invited into a story older than your biography, and its first lesson is sobering. The crowd does not hate you for who you are. It fears what you represent. There is a pattern for what happens next. A group under pressure assigns its tension to a single figure, imagines that figure is the problem, and seeks relief through blame. Psychology calls this the scapegoat mechanism. The scapegoat is not guilty by deed. The scapegoat is guilty by function. The chosen person typically carries a frequency the group has forgotten how to welcome. Too much truth, too much tenderness, too much intensity, too much difference. The very medicine the group needs is the very trait it punishes. Everyone feels a little safer when one person is made unsafe. The story proceeds with ritual regularity. Rumors replace questions, certainty replaces curiosity, and explanation becomes a form of exile. The scapegoat absorbs what the tribe refuses to metabolize. Its envy, its shame, its rage, its grief, its inferiority. Soon the scapegoat appears guilty not by action, but by accumulation. A figure carrying so much projection that the outline looks like proof. This pattern is not superstition. It can be observed in families, workplaces, institutions, and history. Whenever a community cannot face its contradictions, it constructs a person to carry them, and then demands that person quietly disappear so the contradictions can sleep again. What does this do to your energy? It bends it out of orbit. Imagine thousands of fine threads thrown from unacknowledged mines, each carrying a small charge. Those threads land on your field. You feel a heaviness that sleep cannot fix, and a jitter you cannot name. You become suspicious of your own radiance. You begin to anticipate rejection in rooms that have not opened their mouths. Your body contracts. Your timing misfires. Shame arrives with no facts to carry it, and you search your past for a label it does not deserve. To keep peace, you shrink your voice, decorate your persona, and exile the inconvenient soul. It works until it ruins you. Because energy obeys the center it orbits. Orbit long enough around other people's projections, and your life will revolve around defending illusions. Orbit around your center, and the same energy becomes creative force. The turning point begins when you realize you are not broken. You are overloaded with what never belonged to you. If that is true, what becomes possible if you put down one borrowed thread? What conversation would you leave instead of explaining again? What promise could you keep to breath-keeping pace? Start here. There is a second way to interpret the storm. Hatred, when it accumulates, is not only poison, it is also a crucible. Crucibles burn away what cannot carry heat. Every tradition tells the same story. Someone brings fire, question, originality, or mercy, and the village resists. Not because the gift is false, but because the gift is expensive. The new thing asks the old arrangement to change shape, and the old arrangement plans to endure. If you are living near your own originality, the resistance you meet is tuition. Pay it, and something truer enrolls. Refuse, and your life hardens around the refusal. Initiation begins when you stop defending the version designed to simply manage other people's moods. It continues when you stop auditioning for rooms you do not respect. It deepens when you accept that not every misunderstanding is a problem you must solve. What if the most faithful response to certain kinds of hatred is not explanation, but fidelity to the inner instruction that predates the crowd? What if belonging is the reward for honesty, not the price? Ask these questions and watch which parts of your life wobble. Wobble is often the first sign of coming freedom. Listen for the movements of initiation. First comes dissent. You stop defending the version meant to keep the peace and let unedited feelings surface. You withdraw from conversations that require you to leave your center at the door. You notice how often you barter your soul for brief relief. Then comes confrontation. The shadow arrives wearing your best reasons and asks you to soften your edge, your volume, your seeing. Then comes promise. A quiet voice, not flattered by crowds, begins to speak in images. A threshold appears in a field. You cross and feel your breath deepen. A lamp burns behind a screen. You understand that projection belongs to the projector, not the light. A river moves around a dam. You realize flow can be wiser than force. These are not decorations. They are instructions encoded as symbols, given when the day is too loud for direct speech. If you will sit with them without rushing to translate, they will ripen into decisions. You do not need the world to agree for these decisions to be true. You need only the steadiness that comes when inner promise outranks outer permission. That steadiness is living proof of your new allegiance. Dreams will help you here. When consensus reality grows loud, the psyche uses night to deliver unedited truth. People who are collectively opposed often dream of trials, hunts, floods, and long roads. In each dream, attend to what you do with fear. Run, and the symbol grows teeth. Turn, and the symbol becomes a teacher. We cannot control content, but we can choose our attitude. Bring curiosity, and you will wake with a clue. Bring defensiveness, and you will wake with a heavier story. Keep paper by the bed and catch the image before daylight washes it thin. Over weeks, a pattern emerges, and the pattern will track your initiation more faithfully than gossip could. If you work with images, You notice the dream does not flatter persona or punish essence. It reports the state of inner weather and invites you to travel with awareness. Ask what image refuses to leave. What scene returns with detail when you wish it would not? Which figure feels like an enemy until you ask its name and learn it carries medicine you need? The answers will not arrive as lectures. They arrive as orientation, a compass you can feel before you can read. Alchemy names the work of transmutation. You cannot throw hatred away, but you can heat it until it changes metal. Shame can become humility, the capacity to occupy truth without grandstanding. Anger can become boundary, the capacity to say no without theater. Envy can become instruction, the capacity to read desire as a map rather than a verdict. Fear can become clarity, the capacity to separate danger from discomfort. The fuel for this work is attention. Stay with an experience long enough, and it begins to reveal its second face. Rush to escape and you will rehearse it for years. The paradox is simple. Endurance shortens suffering. Avoidance extends it. Ask again and again, what is the usable heat here and how can I aim it toward creation instead of self-erasure? Consider a memory that still stings. Name the feeling without apology. Breathe until the body stops bracing, and translate the feeling into a single boundary, request, or refusal. Now you are doing alchemy at human scale. The world may not applaud, but your nervous system will understand the signal. It will return steadiness in exchange for your sincerity. Beware certain traps. The first is internalization, memorizing their story about you and reciting it to yourself as if it were discernment. Internalization is projection that learned your address. Left alone, it will redecorate your inner life until you cannot tell borrowed furniture from heirlooms. The second is spiritual armor, using beautiful language to avoid honest grief. Armor that speaks of light but cannot weep will eventually crack beneath its own glassy smile. The third is applause. After long exclusion, any welcome tastes like water. But water that demands your shrinking is syrup, and syrup drowns. When praise arrives with a leash, refuse the leash. When acceptance requires amnesia, refuse the bargain. When belonging is sold at the price of your seeing, choose sight. Hooks hide inside compliments for versions of you that still excluded your soul. Bless the compliment. Keep your soul. There is also the trap of speed, the hurry to fix perception so you can rest. Speed is often disguised fear. Slow the scene and a subtler truth appears. You are not required to manage other people's comfort with your existence. You are required to steward existence. Stewardship may look like silence, clarity, or leaving. Centering is not a performance. It is a homecoming. You are not the screen others project onto. You are the lamp. The screen will always be busy. The lamp's work is different. Tend the flame. The more faithfully you tend the flame, the less you attempt the impossible task of managing perception. When you stop negotiating with mirrors, your energy begins to return. Circulation replaces leakage. Presence replaces management. Your sentences shorten. Your eyes soften. You notice the exact moment a conversation asks you to abandon your center, and you decline without theater. Declining does not make you cold. It makes you coherent. Coherence is not rigidity. It is rhythmic steadiness that lets you bend without breaking. If people call this self-importance, remember that self-importance seeks control, while centering seeks stewardship. Control says, believe me. Stewardship says, I will keep the flame whether you understand it or not. Ask yourself, what am I tending whenever I enter a room? Am I tending the flame or tending a story about the flame? Which one steadies me and which one hollows me? You can feel the difference in your ribs. Choose expansion, and let the screen change scenes without commentary. Gently now ask with precision, which archetype is asking to be lived? Are you the mirror that reflects without flinching? The bridge that moves between worlds? The healer who touches forbidden pain? The rebel who interrupts stale arrangements? The fool who speaks accidental truth? The orphan who refuses counterfeit belonging? The prophet whose sight puts comfort on trial? Each pattern carries both a medicine and a cost. Choosing consciously changes the geometry of experience. When you know the medicine, you can bless the cost. When you refuse the medicine, the cost arrives without meaning. Archetype is not costume. It is structure. It gives you a frame strong enough to hold pressure without mistaking pressure for identity. Say, for example, if I am the mirror, my task is clarity, not revenge. Or if I am the healer, my task is boundaries, not martyrdom. Or if I am the rebel, my task is responsible disruption, not chaos. Language like this does not decorate the ego. It educates it. Educated ego serves the self. Try one aloud and watch your breath. Notice which sentence loosens shoulders and which tightens the jaw. The body recognizes assignment before the mind approves. That recognition is steady guidance. Practice will keep you honest. Practice is not public. Practice is the way you move when nobody is watching. It is the quiet refusal to barter your center for a compliment. It is the willingness to tell a plain truth without embroidery. It is the discipline of leaving rooms that ask you to leave yourself. It is the habit of returning to breath, ribs, and feet whenever the old panic says, perform. It is the gentle work of forgiving your previous strategies for keeping you alive and retiring them when they become prisons. Practice is also inventory. Which conversations drain you regardless of topic? Which names tighten your throat before the phone even rings? Which habits shrink your day into maintenance rather than meaning? Write 3 honest lines and act on 1 small line today. Small action breaks trance. You do not heal by thinking about courage. You heal by practicing tiny acts that teach your nervous system it can survive truth. Replace apology with silence. Replace performance with presence. Replace one explanation with a boundary. Sleep and notice your body thanking you in the morning with a steadier pulse. That is how momentum begins, quietly in the places nobody sees. The most dangerous antagonist appears not outside but within, self-hatred. Each of us contains a small prosecutor waiting for the crowd to supply evidence. When outer voices rise, the inner indictment awakens and whispers, "They see what I already fear." Obey that voice and you will sabotage your becoming more efficiently than your harshest critic could dream. The antidote is a vow made without drama. Even if mouths condemn me, I will not condemn myself. Say it aloud until your nervous system believes you. Say it on days when you feel brave, and on days when breathing feels like work. This vow does not make you defiant. It makes you faithful. Faithful to the self that existed before your first compliment and exists after your last insult. From that faithfulness, a reversal begins. Projections lose adhesion because there is nothing sticky left. You are not armored. You are permeable in the right direction. Rooted below, open above. Depth absorbs noise. Height releases it. Your timing returns. Your humor returns. Your capacity to love without bargaining returns. You become coherent, charisma without theater. People trust what is rhythmically steady even in disagreement. That trust is not adoration. It is recognition, the body's nod. Coherence rearranges time. What once stalled begins to move. Not because the world softened, but because your energy stopped leaking into argument. The language you could not find arrives intact. The idea you buried for safety knocks again. You notice which relationships loved you for compliance and which loved you for truth. The difference is plain. Choices simplify into a single question. Does this strengthen my center or sell it? That question cuts through fog like a bell. Follow the bell. It does not shout. It rings at a pitch the body recognizes as home. Home is not agreement. Home is resonance. You can disagree here without disappearing. You can be corrected without collapsing. You can say no without rehearsing a 40-line apology. This is not perfection. This is adulthood. The capacity to remain in yourself while remaining in the world. Notice how your calendar changes when you honor that bell. You stop booking obligations to repair reputation. You stop attending gatherings built to trade masks. You protect mornings that help you hear. You meet people who listen for meaning instead of victory. You stop trying to win arguments you no longer need. Life returns when you stop sponsoring your depletion. Return from the crucible, and you will look ordinary to strangers and unfamiliar to those who knew your masks. You are not purer. You are truer. Trueness has a quiet gravity. It evokes honest response. Some will move closer. Some will move away. Let both movements be. You do not exist to supervise other people's distances. You exist to keep faith with what entrusted itself to you when you were finally still enough to hear it. That entrustment is the beginning of real service. Real service does not erase the self. It requires one. Your work is to offer what is yours where it is welcome, and to withhold it where it would become spectacle. Stay near those who strengthen your vow. Decline apprenticeship to those who only want your mirror. Become a place where projection loses interest because there is nothing sticky to hold. Freedom will not announce itself with trumpets. It will arrive like oxygen you forgot was free. You will notice a different influence appearing. It spreads by atmosphere. People remember how they felt in your presence and begin to ask better questions of life. You did not convert. You reminded. That is enough. For a while. Perhaps you still worry this path is selfish. It is not. A culture governed by approval is a culture addicted to conflict because every disagreement threatens oxygen. A culture governed by center can disagree without destroying because people remain located in themselves while remaining among others. Individuation is not a private luxury. It is a public contribution disguised as a private ordeal. By refusing to be a repository for other people's unlived lives, you force those lives to return to their owners. This is invitation. When we carry only what is ours, new capacity appears. We can offer help that is clean because it is not a secret rescue mission for our own abandoned parts. We can say yes without resentment and no without cruelty. We can stay in complex conversations without needing to win them to prove we exist. That is what maturity looks like in a field. Many centers clearly held, exchanging light rather than trading masks. If you want a test, try this. Offer your presence where it is welcome and withdraw it where it is not, with no explanation. Watch how reality clarifies. What remains is relationship. What fades is weather. Trust the difference. In practice, resist one more seduction. Explanation. Explanation appears generous, but it is usually bargaining. It says, "Please let me back into the place I have outgrown. I will make sense for you if you give me a seat." Do not trade your center for comprehension. There are truths that wither when overhandled. State them once as cleanly as you can, then let your living do the rest. People who require a dissertation will not be satisfied. People who are ready will recognize you by resonance. What does life look like after you stop pleading with mirrors? It looks plainer and wider. You stop negotiating your existence. You move as if your soul were already welcome, because it is. And because waiting for permission costs years you do not have. Some doors will close when you arrive with your full weight. Bless those doors and keep walking. The rooms that are yours will warm as you approach. Heat knows its source. You will also feel a steadier refusal rise in your body. It will sound like a no that requires no paragraph. Honor that sound. It is the voice of a life that no longer intends to pay for entry with self-abandonment. Guard your attention like breath. Where attention goes, a life forms. If a story about you is told in a language your soul does not speak, do not translate it. Let it fade in the archives of other people's weather. If a story rises within you that frightens you with its rightness, read it aloud. You will know it is yours by the way your shoulders drop, while your courage tightens. That paradox, relief and demand in the same moment, is the body's bell. Follow it. Home is not a street address. Home is a posture. It is the stance of a person who will not trade their center for belonging. From that stance you can love without bargaining, create without pandering, and work without worshiping work. You can bless a crowd without borrowing its script. Misunderstanding continues, but it is no longer your shepherd. You are led by something quieter and stronger, the rhythm of a self older than every rumor. That rhythm is modest. It does not audition or flatter. It repeats its timing until you trust it and match steps. When you do, the world does not suddenly agree with you. It simply loses the power to rearrange you. We began with a question. What if the resistance around you is older than you? If that is true, you can stop taking it personally and start taking it seriously. Your task is not to outrun rumor, memorize rebuttals, or prove a purity nobody owns. Your task is to become someone no rumor can organize. Stop negotiating with mirrors. Tend the lamp. Treat your energy as precious, not because it is rare, but because it is unrepeatable. You are a once-in-eternity configuration of wound and wisdom, ancestry and angle, risk and remedy. When that constellation begins to shine, some will unconsciously attempt to dim it. Forgive them and decline them. Walk as if your destiny does not require an audience, because it does not. The right companions will find you by the trail your presence leaves. If the ache returns, and it will in softer echoes, remember the vow. Refuse to be your own prosecutor. Refuse to barter away your strangeness for a chair at a table built of sleep. Refuse to explain music to ears that train themselves not to hear. Bless them and keep moving. Every time you choose center over crowd, the future tilts by a fraction. Fractions accumulate. So here is a fierce invitation. Stand where you are and ask, what power in me have they mistaken for threat? What radiance have they renamed arrogance because it revealed their famine? What gift have I delayed because I feared gossip more than grief? Your answers are instructions. Follow them. If many hate you, let it be evidence that your symbol has woken. Let it be proof that a future placed a hand on your shoulder and asked to be carried. Let it be the pressure that cracks the shell around your voice. When you can tell truth without hurrying, be disliked without shrinking, and love without bargaining your center, you will know the weather has changed. Not out there, in here. From here, destiny resumes, not as chase, but as gravity. The pull of what you were born to be. One day, someone will see you and feel their life tilt toward courage. They will not remember your arguments. They will remember your presence. They will not recall what you corrected. They will recall what you embodied. Because you chose wholeness in the face of noise, they will begin to listen for a sound in themselves that has no opposite.